Pop, 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 pass the popcorn. 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 Pass the popcorn.
Welcome to Alternate Ending, where we're discovering good movies one bad movie at a time. I'm your host, Carrie Jarsinski, and this is Pass the Popcorn, where we're joined by the coolest film lovers we know to talk about movies that are so bad or so good, we can't wait to talk about them either way. Today, I'm joined by the unassumingly hilarious and wildly charismatic Tim Brayton. Happy New Year.
Hello, Carrie. So who are we being joined by? Who's cool?
You know, we had a no-show.
Because you said we.
That's
Which I
right.
assume means you and I, because we're on every episode.
Yep.
And then you said we're joined by, so that tells me that you have a special guest that I'm not prepared for.
They canceled at the last minute, but they were unassumingly hilarious and wildly charismatic. And so,
Because my cat's right here. So I could potentially wooge the camera around so you can see my cat this whole time.
That's true.
And then it'll be funny for you because you'll think that my cat is talking about movies, but everyone listening to the podcast without seeing the Zoom call will have no idea
what's happening,
what any of what's going on right now is
I like
about.
where your head's at. And honestly, I might then have my first sort of co-host that I actually know what they're talking about. If we were to do said episode.
I'm just saying, do you want this podcast to turn into an hour of streaming pussy is what I'm asking you, Carrie.
I see now what you were setting up for.
I wasn't even setting it up. It was there and I was like, you know what? It's there. I'm not going to walk by. I don't have shame. I'll just stop by and pick that one up.
You caught me off guard. I'm going to be honest with you. I have no response to that. But I will say that was a good one. That was a good one.
Well, if you do want to see all of my exclusive pussy pics, I do recommend subscribing to us as a member of our Patreon.
That's right. There will be many later. Many later. I don't even know how to reel myself back in.
A very hairy pussy, I might add.
So Happy New Year. Happy New Year to you. I can tell already that it's been a few weeks since we've recorded because, again, I, even after all these years, wasn't prepared for that. So
I will also say I cheated on you a little bit. I have guest starred on a podcast. The episode isn't ready to go yet. I will talk more about it when it comes up. It was a PG-13 podcast, so I had to be like, I couldn't make these jokes on that podcast.
Oh, so it's pent up.
I limited myself to saying the word fuck like twice. So I just have a lot in me that needs to be expressed. So you're going to get the brunt of that, and I apologize.
There's an express joke in there, but I don't know how to even get to it. But I also am curious. I don't think you were allowed to drop the 2 F-bombs if it was PG-13. I think you're only allowed 1.
Yes.
Is that correct?
Hopefully one of them gets cut by their editor. We'll see.
I see. Just to keep it legit. Oh, that's good. What was the topic?
So it's actually, it is a podcast run by a couple listeners of the show I will talk about it more in detail when it comes out. But it was actually a book podcast. It was not a movie podcast because you may know this about me, Carrie. I am a Renaissance man. I have many interests.
Yes.
Baking. I like both books and movies.
And
that's all that I do like. But it was about the Babysitters Club series of children's novels from the 1980s.
Oh, and they didn't ask me. I'm like the number one reader of the Babysitters Club.
I think maybe once the show gets up and running and you have a chance to hear some episodes, you should definitely pester them.
I would never ask somebody if I could be on their podcast. They would have to come to me because I'm wildly insecure. And I'm going to be honest with you, so many people after listening to the show for so many years have never asked me. I just don't know why. I don't get it.
Well, we'll see if we can change that going forward.
We'll see if we can. I joke. That's exciting. Well, I'm excited to check it out when it does come out because I have lots of perspectives on it. My kids now watch the movies and the TV shows too. My sister read them as a kid. We read those like crazy. So I'm excited to see that when it comes out. But this is our first episode of the new year. New year, new you. This is going to be a fresh, brand new year, and it's just going to be wrought with opportunity and good things. I have a feeling.
I take comfort in the knowledge that it almost has to be better than 2023 was for me personally.
I think you're right. And I feel like even consecutively, I think it's going to be better I'm knocking on wood right now because I'm actually super superstitious. It's got to be better than the last 2 to 3 years, I would
That's the
say.
thing. Like 23 was bad for me. I don't know that
Yeah.
23 was sort of globally bad, but in order to be better than any of the other years of the 2020s, it basically needs to not have a pandemic.
Yes.
And I'm not a betting man, but I feel like 2 pandemics in 4 years would be unlikely.
I think so.
I would take those odds.
So I agree with you. If this could be the best year of your life, what would be at the top of the list that you would be like your goal, or what would happen?
Well, if it's the best year of my life, it's presumably because I have about $10 million fall onto me
Yeah.
by perhaps catching a leprechaun. It's hard to say.
Yeah.
Or I will take as a runner-up finishing my dissertation, which will hopefully be happening maybe soon. Not putting a date on it. Had some setbacks in the last few weeks, but soon.
Soonish.
And then turning that into a job.
Well,
And
that'd be
I
good.
actually am sort of maybe have nibbles in that direction. So that's a very exciting place for me to be.
Wait, where's your nibble coming from? What's your nibble?
I have 2 different jobs that I applied for that actually found my application interesting enough to want to interview me, which
Wow.
is new territory. I haven't been there in a while.
Stand-up
So I'm
comedian?
excited.
What's the gig? What would they have you do?
So I'm not gonna go into too many details because I don't want to spoil it / reveal where I'm working or I'm talking about working. But one of the jobs is non-academic, so I will say, tragically, the end result of this 9-year journey may be to not actually do anything with my degree. But whatever, it would be a fun job that, if the time comes, I'll talk more about it. But there is actually a teaching job,
Uh-huh.
and it's an interesting sort of shift to what I do. As I said, I don't really want to talk too much about the institution in question, but it is one of the places that does film history for people who are practicing artists,
Okay.
basically. So it's film history through the art department rather than film history through where I am right now, which is doing it through a communications department. And as someone who, in my past life, decades ago, still held out hope of becoming some sort of film creator, that's always been the way I've kind of thought about film, is from the perspective of someone who wants to make movies. And so it would be very, very cool to get to teach it that way, which is something I haven't had the opportunity to do. So that's kind of,
You would be so
I have a
good at
I have a good
that.
feeling.
Yeah, that would be right up your alley. And I think so. I guess take yourself back 10 years. What if you had asked yourself 10 years ago, or even before you started on this,
It would need to be more than 10 years. It would probably need to be 15 years if we're gonna
15
play
years?
the what if game.
If we're going to play how long it's taken you to do this dissertation, we'll go back to before then. So 15 years ago.
Well, the
I'm
dissertation. Let's pump the brakes. The dissertation has taken 5.
I just being a jerk.
Dissertation started in 2019, and the first 2 years of the dissertation are fake. They don't count.
They
There was a
don't count.
pandemic, so I really
Yes.
started writing the dissertation in 2021, and then therefore right on track.
You're absolutely on track for sure. Because you're only going to be like 43, right?
I will be 42. The dissertation will be done before I celebrate
43
one further birthday.
next year. So, gosh, I got so swept up in being rude that I forgot what I was going to say.
And it's great because you found the literal only thing that actually flusters me.
It's hard to do. Yours is pussycats, and mine is talking about your dissertation. But oh, I know what I was going to say. So, if you could take yourself back in a time machine, though, what job would you have had in film? What would you have wanted?
I mean, if we're going back to, say, the late aughts after I've already graduated film school,
Yeah.
editing,
Okay.
post-production.
I would be so, I thought you might say that, and I'd be so interested in how much you would actually like that. Like, now that I've seen just so much of the stuff that Rob does behind the scenes, and then all of the cogs, in the wheel. I don't know if that's how you say it. All of the people that are involved in actually making a movie come to light and seeing the individual pieces and how it plays out over time. Like, editing is a grueling job. I feel like the guy that they have editing Hauntology, which was the first feature that they worked on a couple years ago, he has been working on it forever. I feel like it's the longest job, and then he works on it forever. And then you know what happens? A couple of yahoos, like people like Rob or people like the director, come in and they're like, you know what? I actually I don't like that. Why don't you do it again? And it just feels like this long, monotonous process that seems like not as glamorous as it does on paper, I guess, is my editing.
I mean, I don't know that editing seems glamorous. I will certainly say that the working with yahoos is for sure part of it, and also I will say, without knowing any of well, not without knowing any of the people involved, that's exactly the opposite of what I was about to say. Uh, a a stint in post production that goes on for quote unquote years
Yeah.
tells me that it is not so much the editor who is throwing sand in the gears as it is perhaps the overly indulgent producer who needs to tighten his batting down a little bit.
I don't think that based on all of those things you said is what's happening, because Rob is just to get it done. Like he just doesn't. He's just a transactional, like get things done type person. But yeah, I think I could see that if it was a different person. In this case, it just seems like there's just so many changes. I don't know.
Okay.
It doesn't feel.
I'm
like
saying it's fun to blame Rob.
Oh, yes. I absolutely would love to do that. But I mean, they're nearing the finish line. But I just think when I think about you, I just think getting into a role like you were just talking about with teaching is going to be so much more satisfying, I think, for you.
I mean, potentially yes, potentially no. The thing about editing specifically out of all the tasks you do in the creation of a movie, it is the good one for introverts.
Sure.
Because I do love being on a film set. There's no environment in the entire history of humanity quite like a film set. They're great places to be.
Mm-hmm.
They are stressful, they are busy, but they're a ton of fun. But no, editing is for the people who are like, you know what I enjoy doing? I enjoy sitting alone in my room with a computer and not interacting with anybody.
I feel that for the guy
and that
that's
feels
working on
like
this.
my
Yeah.
speed.
Yeah. Although some of the best introverts are the best teachers, though, I found. Most of the teachers then that I loved or I thought were super passionate or were the ones that taught me the most, I'd catch them outside of class and you were expecting to see that same version of the person that you see in class. And it's all like, blah, like, let me tell you all these stories. Let me connect with you. And they're kind of like, see you later, lady.
Teaching is a performance, and I think this is something
Yeah.
people who don't teach don't necessarily get. When I teach my students,
An actor.
I am playing the role
Yes.
of their teacher. It is not who I am, and this is a very, very key distinction. It's why you always hear, people be like, "Yeah, teachers, they only work 9 months out of the year, and when they are working, they're only working however many hours a week." It is. Point taken, but it's also exhausting because you are turned on so hard the entire time you're teaching. Like it is wildly draining work. It is so much more draining per minute of expenditure than any other thing I've ever done.
Yeah. I honestly don't know how you do it, and I'm fueled by being around people, and that seems exhausting. Like that seems brutal. So this is a long way of me saying, I hope you get that teaching job. I think that's going to be exciting.
I do and I don't. The other job is certainly going to be much less disruptive and would pay more.
Oh.
So those are sorts of the trade-offs.
Is this Chick-fil-A?
It's like, do I want to move to hell and back and get less money, but I get to teach? Or do I want to sort of plant where I am and do something that's not teaching, which would still, and again, I don't want to go into details, it would still involve working with students, just not as their teacher.
Okay. Well, either one, as long as you're getting paid.
I would be a pimp.
You'd be a pimp?
I would be whoring out undergraduates.
Okay.
For sex and money.
Okay. So I can see why it pays more now.
Exactly. And you also see why I don't want to talk about it in public,
see.
Right?
Yeah. Don't worry. I'll definitany edit that part out because that could get weird,
good.
Especially as you're trying to get out of this whole dissertation thing. Wouldn't want any marks on you there in a public forum. That's for sure. Well, I'm excited for that. I think good things ahead. I have personally started off the year with the most flair I could possibly have, the most excitement I could possibly have. I was told by the daughter that likes me least that's
the older one, correct?
Yeah. I mean, but here's the twist in the story. It turns out she loves me the most of anybody. then
Okay. So she likes you the least, but she loves you the most.
It's hard to say. We were playing a game called How Well Do You Know Your Family? This can get like
I feel like that game needed some workshopping at the title level before it hit the market, but okay.
it's a little wordy, it's a little lengthy, but there's all of these individual cards which basically ask you all of these personal questions, and then you go around.
Oh, this is an actual game with like rules and like a set, and that's the name they gave it.
This is the name they gave it.
I was joking. That's a terrible name.
Somebody's making money off of this.
Terrible name for a commercially released product.
Anyway,
tell me about this game.
They're probably bajillionaires. So that this
How well do you know your family?
Yes. How well do you know your family? And you get like 50 cards. There's so many cards that are in there. And then you go around the room and everyone pulls a card. When it's theirs, they ask the question, and then you go around the room and the first person to answer it correctly gets the card. And then it's just like, how many cards can you accumulate?
So it's like the Newlywed Game, but for people who you aren't fucking.
Yes. Yes. Okay. I would honestly love to play this with you. Because
we young lady are not family.
Well, we had a friend that was here playing with us, and she did win. It was the neighbor.
That makes sense. The person who's outside the family situation undoubtedly has a much more probing and insightful understanding of its dynamics.
I would agree. She's much more connected to us. And so it gets to Abby, and the question is, how do you express your love was the question. And everybody's like going around the room. They're thinking like, oh yeah, it's probably like she gives you a hug. Like, no, she doesn't give anyone hugs. Like, oh, is it service? Like, oh, you know, somebody needs help. You go and you help them. No, she would never help anybody like without some sort of award or gift prize afterwards. So then it goes all the way around and she looks me in the eye and she was like, mommy should know it's not exactly what you would think, because you have to give a clue. And I was like, oh boy, I think I know what it is. So it comes to me and I was like, you show people that you love them by being mean to them. And she's like, yep, that's it.
All right.
So basically I'm getting gaslit.
She does love you the most.
She loves you. And so I looked at her, I was like, I never knew this. She's like, yeah, I never told you. And we had this moment where she was like, yeah, when I'm picking on you and I'm teasing you and gaslighting you, it's all based out of love. I was like, wow, I feel like my whole mentality is shifted. It's just, I'm just going to absorb every time she tells me no. When I ask her to do something, I'm just going to take it now because I know it's coming from.
She's saying, I love you.
She's saying, I love you. So I feel riding a high here. Riding a high.
There you go. That's good.
And I'm not only riding the high because my child might be a sociopath. I'm also riding the high because I saw some really, really good movies. One, thanks to a Patreon supporter, and the other, thanks to, I guess I'll give it to Rob. He suggested it, and I saw it, and I kind of wanted to tell you about it. So I've got two that I'm excited to talk to you about today. One of which is 1976's By My Own Name, Carrie, from Patreon supporter Granger Poll. So I'm really eager to get your opinions on that one. And then the other one is one.
I just want to pause for a moment and say that I've been waiting for you to see the movie Carrie the entire lifetime of this podcast. And I'm so worried that I'm going to be so excited to do all the bits I want to do that I'm going to fuck them all up.
You're nervous. So
I apologize in advance that the last third of this podcast is just brutally unfunny because it's me trying to make jokes and they're not landing. I'm so nervous.
I feel like I'm
so nervous about this finally happening.
The people that are still with us expect it. So okay. I think that's fine. And then I'm also nervous about that one. I also am going to talk about a movie called How to Blow Up a Pipeline. Came out in 2022, was kind of hopping several months back, but we just got around to it and I wanted to talk about it. And then Tim, what are you going to bring?
I'll actually be very, very curious to hear about that one. Well, we could talk about it when you're talking about it.
Yeah, that sounds good. What are you bringing?
So I've had a bit of a dry spell for seeing movies. Trying to get back in the swing whilst also balancing writing and balancing other things because it is voting for the OFCS awards season, which means I've got a lot of movies I need to catch up with stat. But I did have some screeners I was burning through before they expired. So I have seen a trifecta of recent-ish, I think probably since early November releases. All of them uh, foreign language films from sort of superstar foreign film directors, I would say, at this moment in time. So going, I think in their order of U.S. release, these would be Monster, a Japanese film by Hirokazu Koreeda, or Koreeda Hirokazu. The Taste of Things, a French film by the French-Vietnamese director Tran Anh Hung, and the not technically released yet, but coming very soon, About Dry Grasses by Nuri Bilge Ceylan from Turkey.
Okay. And wait, these are all by different people. But what's
These are three different movies by three different people.
What's the commonality? You said they're kind of like a trifecta.
They're all three like art films not in the English language by extremely major film directors.
Okay. Whew. Well, I am
And they all have nudity.
I've got some with nudity too.
None of them have nudity.
Oh, I have nudity. I don't know if you know this, but there's some nudity in one of my movies. Quite a bit of it, actually. But which one should I start with? I'll go first because you can do yours together. Which one should I start with?
I feel like Carrie is the like clear. It's the one I'm most excited to talk about of the 5 films in question. So let's put that one off for last.
All right, we'll put it off for last. So I caught up with How to Blow Up a Pipeline. This is available for free if you're a Hulu subscriber. It's directed by Daniel Goldhaber, who I don't know anything about. And frankly, I don't know anything about anybody that's in this movie, except actually there's one gal. And gosh darn it, if I can't think of her name right now, it might be Jordan. But the gal in there is like the only one that visually I knew. She's got these really long, pretty dreads. But the premise of the story is that it's a movie that if you didn't know anything about it, you might think it was a documentary. And it's this group of unlikely people that come from all of these different places in different areas that become connected by their mutual hatred of climate change.
Pipelines, I should imagine.
And pipelines. So they're really mad because these pipelines are breaking the earth and these people are upset about it. And they're like, you can't just sit by and not do anything when, the earth is dying basically because of these people and the profits and all of that. So they decide to take more aggressive action, band up together. And what you'll find out, I'm not going to spoil this movie at all. What you'll find out is they all have a particular set of skills and they all have a particular stake in why they're extra pissed. So we should all be pissed, but they're extra pissed. So they're really invested in blowing up. It's not a spoiler to say that they're invested in blowing up a pipeline.
I mean, I should say it would be remarkably disappointing if at no point across this film's running time did they attempt to blow up a pipeline. I would feel cheated.
Exactly. Mismarketing. So I will tell you that they do attempt to do that. And
I assume they do so whilst demonstrating. They don't merely just blow up a pipeline, but they rather walk through the process of doing so.
Yes, this is exactly what they do. A how-to guide, if you will.
and I will say, I have the cast in front of me. I will bet just about anything that the one you recognized is Sasha Lane.
That is who it is. Her name is not Jordan. Jordan is probably
Her name is not Jordan. Her character name appears to be Theo.
Yes, Theo. And she's really, really good in this.
Yeah. She was in Hearts Beat Loud, which I know you've seen.
Yes, and I love that. Yeah.
And she shall be in 2024's Twisters.
Okay.
So that's something to look forward to. But I also want to point out there would have been a middle-aged Native American woman named Joanna.
Yes.
In this film.
Yes.
The actress who plays her is Irene Bedard, whose face you would not recognize, but you would know her voice. She was Pocahontas in the 1995 Disney film.
Oh gosh, who knew? I wish I had before. Interesting. I think she had a pretty small part because most of the focus of the film is on these 20-somethings that.
Well, because it's a movie, so they need to be sexy people.
Yes.
And we have cumulatively decided that middle-aged people can no longer be sexy.
These are sort of I don't know if I call them sexy. I would say they're just sort of cool hipster types. Ish. Actually, no, I don't know. It's a hodgepodge. And that's actually the part that I liked about it. You're taking in, it didn't make it super politicized. It was just, climate change is bad. And so it wasn't like a bunch of hippies out to, blow this thing up. It was like, yeah, this guy who you might stereotypically think would be supportive of oil refineries is part of the group. And
is he like a drawling Texan with a cowboy hat? Because that's who I think of when I think of who would be pro pipeline.
I wasn't going to like describe it specifically.
Is it actually George W. Bush? Is it a character representing the former president of the United States?
It actually is. It actually is. He's in the credits there. It's supposed to represent him. But I don't know. It was just people that are pissed about what this thing has done. And so I don't know. I ended up finding it to be super tense and super, I don't know. It felt like it was low budget, even though it probably wasn't, but it was well done low budget or something like that. Like it had and I think that was the documentary quality about it. It just felt very real. Like I walked away. So when I walk away from something like that, then I'm also like, well, the trickle down is, gosh, the acting was really good. The acting was really solid and believable. And, I kind of got lost in the story and like nervous, as you're going along around like how this is going to play out. And like, I mean, I have my own perspectives on it. So I know who I'm cheering for. I don't know if it doesn't give you a hard stance that like you should agree with these folks either necessarily. It just kind of leaves that up to you. But I don't know, you're kind of rooting for them. You're like, oh, come on, like get the bomb, destroy this place. So you're cheering for them along the way. But obviously things don't always go smoothly when you try to blow up a pipeline. So it's the drama that ensues. I just thought it was I don't want to say easy climate change movie to go down, but it was just kind of a satisfying, like fun, free watch. Like, and those are harder and harder to come by. And so I think, I don't know that you would particularly love it, Tim. I think, I'd like to say, I know you like boring movies, but I think I think you would think in this movie you were looking for less boring. Like you might want it to be a little bit more fun. And it is more just procedural. Like it feels like a fly on the wall of what would have actually happened if a group decided to do something like this. So I don't know. I thought it was really good. I liked it.
I am very interested in your sort of what you were saying that it sounds like it's not really an in-your-face message movie about climate change. That's what I'm not hearing. Would you say that that's fair?
Yeah, it's not in your face. Yeah.
Okay, because I will say I have this right now on my list of movies to try catching up with in the tier of, boy, I hope I can slip through without having to catch up with this movie, basically.
Yeah.
Because that has been my concern, is that it feels like it was probably going to be very much a like, let's learn a lesson. And I just don't care for movies that are teaching me a lesson. So the fact that I'm hearing you say it's not that actually entices me in a way I have not been enticed, and that you're saying it's sort of very procedural.
Yeah.
Also, because I like movies about people doing a task.
Yeah.
That's one of my favorite things to watch in a movie.
In that case, I think you might like it. Because it is just kind of this group of people doing a thing, and you could have probably translated the thing to a lot of other things, and it's more about seeing the experience of them trying to do it. And the other thing Rob and I were talking about is like, I like the element of, I mean, you have these people who are doing something really catastrophically dangerous, and they're there with their YouTube notes, like their YouTube video trying to figure out how the chemical conversions work for creating an explosive. So these aren't like, some of them are experienced, others aren't. So there's kind of a fun dynamic there too. I think it's fun. I think that you might like it if you like watching somebody figure something out.
You have definitely, honestly, you have done more than every other reviewer I have encountered to make me feel like I might be interested in seeing this movie. So thank you. Also, if I watch it and I hate it, I am personally
blaming. One last plug for that, though, is the reason Rob really wanted to see it was another film podcast that he listens to. There's three.
A what?
Occasionally when he gets the cliff notes of this other podcast that he doesn't listen to from a friend, they're three different hosts, and they all have very, very different perspectives. You have like the snooty cinephile, so they're nothing like us. And then they have like the casual person who doesn't know anything, and they're kind of an idiot. Like all these
I can't
dynamics.
imagine us with a 3-person podcast anymore, Robert, if you're listening to your former
Dear
friends.
former co-hosts. It would be so weird. But he said that there was just like group consensus. So you do have all of those perspectives, and maybe you take something
Okay,
out of it differently that you like than I did, but that there's something there for you too as
cool,
the cinephile.
cool.
So yes, that's How to Blow Up a Pipeline, available for free on Hulu.
All
So
right.
yeah, there's that one. Now I would like to know about your trifecta of Japanese films.
Well, only one of them is Japanese,
Oh,
actually. They're all foreign.
foreign.
Was sort of
It's
what
the
connects them.
same. The
I'm
same.
going to go through these relatively quickly. I don't have terribly strong feelings about two of them. It's more that these are films by people we care about. Like these are important names. Um, and I just kind of wanted to give my quick Cliff's Notes version. At some point, I'm hoping to get reviews of all three of these up on the website, but I am miles behind on writing film reviews, so it'll take a while. So I did just want to kind of give the world my sense of what these three movies are, just for the sake of it. So I'm gonna rank them in ascending order of my enthusiasm, and I am a little bit disappointed then to say that the one that I feel the least enthusiasm for is Monster, the Japanese film directed by Koreeda Hirokazu, from a screenplay written by Sakamoto Yuji. Um, and it was in Cannes. I think it won something. I think it won Best Screenplay at Cannes, which I would find. Yes, it did. Which I find mildly odd because I would say the screenplay is a problem more than a strength of the film. I do think it's extremely well put together within that. But basically, the story here is this kind of multifaceted. There's a kid in the fifth grade named Minato who is involved in a bullying scenario. And I frame it that way because his involvement is part of the question of the film. Is he being bullied? Is he a bully? Does he know something about bullying that he is not saying? This is kind of where the film is at. Like it's not really giving us a clear answer to that question. But so we sort of encounter the story of what's going on in Minato's life through three perspectives. And the first third of the film is his mother, Saori, telling her story of how she kind of begins understanding that there is something wrong at school and she's not hearing about it, and how weirdly the school seems to be kind of stonewalling her, and in particular her son's teacher is just not giving her what she needs to know. So she's getting very frustrated and sort of being thwarted in her efforts to protect her son. And then it goes back, it like rewinds to the start of the story, and then tells the story of the teacher and his experience of watching this young man sort of in this situation. And from his perspective, this is much more of the son is a troublemaker and causing problems, and he is being thwarted in his ability to basically to protect the other students. And then we flash back a third time, and then we get the story from the son's perspective, and we sort of learn what's actually going on and why the adults are just not quite picking up on that. And it's less interesting than that makes it sound. I think that sounds interesting. I don't know if you think that sounds
No, it
interesting
did. It did.
necessarily.
Yeah, I was kind of into it.
I think the execution's not there. Uh, it's kind of boring to go through it three times. This is a 2 hour and 5 minute movie because like every other movie, it's too long. Um, I found it peaked for me with the mother. And the further we get, the more times we kind of go through this over and over again, the more it just feels kind of very schematic. But that being said, um, terrific performances. Koreeda is sort of known for his child performances. Kind of his big breakthrough film, or one of his earlier breakthrough films, was Nobody Knows from I think 2004, which is basically about three children whose parents have abandoned them in an empty apartment, just getting by in life. And those three children are phenomenal. And so he's since then kind of had this like being good with children is like his thing. So
Hmm.
the child performances in this film are really good. It's really beautiful to look at. So it is a well-made thing. It is worth, I think, going into it and seeing what's there. I didn't find it didn't pay off what I was hoping it to pay off. It ends up being much more of while we could just skip to the final third and learn everything, and the first two thirds kind of feel like they're more deliberately confusing us than actually providing us with different perspectives. So I don't think the execution is quite there in the screenplay, but it is an interesting idea and it's very beautifully acted. And he's a very important film director, which again is sort of the thing that ties these movies together. Is they're all by very important film directors. So not a movie to avoid. Certainly does not get my full throated enthusiasm, but it's solid. It's his first film in Japan. He's a Japanese filmmaker, but his first film in Japan in a couple movies now. He's been sort of floating around the rest of the world, but he's gone back to Japan, and I think it is actually better than anything he's done since he left Japan.
And what was the title of that one again? That was the first
title
one.
of that one is Monster.
Monster. Okay, and that one
pretty straightforward title.
Okay. And that's the first.
That's the one I care about the least of these three films I'm going to be talking about. Next one is also about a teacher, actually. It's called About Dry Grasses. It is a Turkish film directed by Nuri Bilge Ceylan, who is I think it's fair to say he's the most prominent Turkish director at this point. He is a filmmaker who I believe has won the Palme d'Or at Cannes, although not for this. I believe his 2014 film, I think, won Winter Sleep. I used to love his work, and I increasingly don't love his work, simply because I think that it is getting too long. This film, for example, is 3 hours and 17 minutes long.
Oh, jeez.
And a very substantial portion of that running time is people discussing like moral philosophy of being a teacher, basically.
Oh, gosh.
And if that wasn't enough to keep me interested in it, I don't really know how in God's name it could possibly keep you interested in it, Carrie. But the plot here is you've got this middle-aged guy, this teacher, who is kind of stranded in this Eastern Anatolian village to do his work. And he is approaching the point where he will be able to leave. And he's very, very excited about this. And right around the time that he's like starting to get ready to head out, he and one of his coworkers are accused of being inappropriate with two of their female students. And the students are all like 12, 13, 14, 15. And so that kind of happens. And it's not exactly the case that the film doesn't tell us. It doesn't really make us assume that these accusations are true, but it doesn't present the teacher as being like some sort of wounded victim because he's a huge asshole. And we certainly understand that he's a huge asshole. He's not an asshole about this in particular.
So you want to believe the kids.
You want to believe the kids. You sort of don't, but you're sort of like, but he's a dick, so something's got to take him down anyway, kind of. But so basically, he gets this accusation, and it kind of sends him into a tailspin because now he's like, I've worked so hard to assemble this very horrible life that I don't like, but at least I have this horrible life that I don't like. And now even that's going to be kind of taken away from me. And now I'm just going to be this agonized middle-aged dude who nobody really likes, and what I'm going to do with myself. And the first hour and the last hour are quite good. And it ends up not really being about the accusation. The accusation kind of drifts away about halfway through this film. But it still is about this middle-aged guy just being like awful. Like he's not likable. We don't like him. None of the people around him particularly like him. And him sort of coming to grips with, maybe if I were a more likable person, I would not now be miserable in my 40s. All of which hits home powerfully hard, I have to say. Middle-aged guy who's just about done being a teacher, who's just sort of generally intemperate,
doesn't like children. So I'd
say the 2-hour version of this film that basically just chunks out the middle hour and slams the beginning and the end together, I love.
Okay.
The 3.25-hour version of this movie is really long, and it did not hold my interest.
Drags a little. But
the good parts are phenomenal.
You got me thinking, what is the longest movie that you've ever seen that you think was worth every minute?
Sure. That would be the 9.5 hour Holocaust documentary Shoah.
Showa. I've seen that one thrown around many times as a threat to me personally, and I've avoided it thus
It
far.
is 9.5 hours long, and it is about the Holocaust.
I would die. I think I would have to decline that one. But that one was worth it. What about? I thought you were going to say Titanic. You did say
Oh
Showa.
God, I can more than double Titanic. That Titanic is for children.
That is for children. So that was one where it was worth it, though. But I guess
I would also be inclined to say that Satan Tango, which I forget the exact running time, but it's like about 7.25 hours.
oh gosh.
I I don't think there's anything I would cut out of Satan Tango.
Okay. And you watch that movie. Okay, let's say you watch a 9 hour movie. Is that a movie where you feel like you walked out and watched a 2 hour movie? It doesn't feel that because you're so immersed, so wrapped up in it, or does it feel 7 to 9 hours
I
long?
mean, Satan Tango is meant to be a painful experience.
Okay. It feels
Like
as
at the
though
end of Satan
Showa
Tango,
is
you need
too.
to feel hungry and bleary-eyed and tired and sad.
Okay, but Showa is a real party. That
Showa
one.
is just like you're getting all these great stories,
Yes.
lots of cool locations. It's a real good time. You feel real good about it.
I'm avoiding both of those.
Showa is also meant to actually be watched, I think, in 4 sessions, whereas
Okay.
Satan Tango never gets watched in one session, but is designed to be watched in one session. It's
Okay.
typically watched in 3.
All right. Okay. Well, that's good to know that some people should go as long as they did.
You know, sometimes it works, and sometimes you're just like, Nuri, my friend,
Too
2 hours.
long.
Because he used to make short little movies. Like his early films are all like in that 1.5 to 2 hour range. And I think his early films are just terrific. And then he started creeping over the 2 hour mark in a really big way in 2011. And then he's off to the races. His last 3 movies have all been over 3 hours long.
Yeah. All right. And so this is your second favorite thus far of the two
Of
that you've
the
seen.
3, because the parts that are good are so good. The parts that are bad are boring, but the
Okay.
parts that are good are so good. But far and away my favorite. And right now, I haven't finished my top 10 of the year yet. This is going to be comfortably in my top 10 of the year. This is a film by Tran Hung, who is a filmmaker whose work I have not actually previously seen, although he has a couple very significant films. The Scent of Green Papaya from 1993 and The Vertical Ray of the Sun from 2000 are sort of the two very, very important films from this director in the past. He is Vietnamese born, but I believe all of his work has been done in the French film industry. Um, and his newest film is The Taste of Things, which is a period film. It's set in the late 19th century, based, I believe, on a book, but very, very loosely. And the scenario here is there is this elderly, not elderly, but like older than middle-aged man named Dodin Buffon, played by Benoit Magimel, who is he owns a restaurant. But he's sort of just generally like a foodie. He likes good food. He has friends come over to eat very delicious food at his house. And for many, many years now, I believe it's over 20 years, his chef has been a woman named Eugénie, played by Juliette Binoche, the iconic, beloved actress of France. And she has been his cook for, these many years. And between the two of them, they've sort of gained this reputation in the French gourmand world as being like the best of the best. Like, this is where you go for fabulous presentation and really, really precise, good cooking. And as will happen after a man who loves to eat and a woman who loves to cook have lived in the same house for 20 years, they are in love.
Mm-hmm.
And there's this sort of question, if they act on this romance, will that represent a new chapter in their lives, or will it mean that it ruins the food? And if it
Oh,
means that it
boy.
ruins the food, isn't that actually worth avoiding? Because the food sort of is what really matters here. So that's kind of the story. There's not really a lot to it. But what's great about it, the first like hour of this movie, I think it's 2.25 hours long, solidly the first hour consists of nothing at all but watching Juliette Binoche cook.
Yeah.
And the food she cooks looks so fucking good. I want to eat it so much.
I am looking up her face right now so that I can
You've seen her in things.
Oh,
I guarantee you know
sure.
Juliette Binoche.
Oh, for sure, for sure. Oh, you love her though.
I love her. She's one of my absolute favorites.
I would
So
love
it's
to
two of my
watch her
absolute
cook.
favorite things, which is Juliette Binoche and food.
Oh my gosh,
And,
yes.
I said earlier the two things I like are books and movies. Actually, the third thing I like is food.
And Juliette
So
Binoche is the
maybe I
fourth.
can get on some food eating podcast at some point. That would be fun.
I think that would be fun. Or maybe we could incorporate into this one where there's like some sort of tasting as well, and we can describe it like we describe movies. Maybe
That would be a
a
lot of
little
fun.
bit salty.
But so it's like just an hour of the best food porn I have ever seen in any movie.
Interesting. I'm a little bit compelled by this. And there's something about Juliette Binoche now that I'm looking at her, because I've seen her actually in a couple other things. She's not somebody that there's something about her. Like, she's not somebody that on paper I would be like, ooh, Juliette Binoche. But it's like she has this quality about her that
Hmm.
I don't know if it's just because she's just so classically and universally lovely, or if it's the accent. I don't know what it is, but I think I would like to also watch her cook for a long time, like many hours.
It's a pretty great deal.
She's got a
Um,
vibe. Yeah.
and the further the movie goes along, the more it actually does start to have a plot and becomes a bit of a melodrama. But it's quite good.
Oh my gosh.
Like I said, comfortably in my top 10 of the year. Also, the two leads are exes and they have a child together. So like they're sort of bringing that into their portrayal of two people who know each other very, very well in this sort of very comfortable, but not necessarily sexually intimate way.
So is this Benoit?
Benoit, yes, Benoit Bechamel.
Can you believe right now that I did not say Benoit? Can you
I'm
believe it?
pleased. I'm proud of you.
Every part of me was
I
about
feel like
to
you're
say it.
growing.
I am growing. Every part of me was like, Benoit. And then I was like, Carrie, don't say it. It's
Yeah,
not
good old
Benoit.
Benoit Magamel.
I would have said that. Benoit Magamel. So he was married to Juliette Binoche. I feel as though I need to see
Well,
this movie.
they lived together and had children. I never said they were
Or
married.
they're
They're
partners.
French,
Okay.
Carrie.
Sure. But looking at his face, looking at her face, looking at this whole vibe, this looks so good. It's called Feel
I
Good
went gaga
Romance.
for this movie. I loved it so much.
Okay, so this is the taste of things. And where
Yes,
did you catch it?
It opened in December in New York, LA, and I think Chicago. I'm not sure how its subsequent release is going, or if you will ever have a chance to see it in theaters here in Madison, which I strongly doubt. But it'll be on streaming at some point.
Okay. It says release date February 9th. Well, I am very, very excited for this. I do want to see this a ton. And I am a little nervous already, I think, because you and I have had this conversation before, earlier on in your relationship when I was like, oh, do you choose your career or do you choose your partner? And you and I had this debate and I was like, like in a heartbeat, I would choose my loved one. And you're like, no. And I was so stressed by that conversation because I was like, what? Well, I don't even know what you're saying. You're like, no.
Can I throw a bomb at you, Carrie?
Yeah.
The teaching job that I'm interviewing for might require me to make that choice.
No. Then the answer is no. The answer is a hard no.
It is a factor in why the other job would be better.
But still, there's other ways to make it work, just like in the taste of things. Right now, I'm stressing, thinking, are they going to choose the food or are they going to choose each other? Why not both? Just, it still can be maybe not as tasty, but like sacrifice a little bit of tastiness for this tasty guy that you have here. I just feel stressed by the idea that somebody would have to choose. And I'm feeling stressed again, even just thinking about it. So,
I mean, it's much less heightened in the movie than I think you're expecting it to be because it is still a French art film. That is an undercurrent to what is potentially interfering with their ability to profess their love for each other. But it's not like she's gonna retire and become a housewife.
No.
You know,
Okay.
like it's not that melodramatic.
I just don't like decisions. Like, just don't choose those kinds of things. And you know what I would love now, based on this conversation, I would love it if you put me down as a referral for that teaching job.
Too late. I've already
No.
given them my references.
No.
Darn. I should have asked you first.
I would have had such nice things to say about all your pedophilia comments.
I sadly only put faculty members who have worked with me here at my grad student program, including two who are very, very prominent scholars in the field. So I feel like a moron. I could have had a podcast.
That was your mistake. That was your mistake, man. Well, if you don't get it, you'll know why.
Obviously,
I'll try to sneak mine in there. But I'm really excited about this. So for those listening, again, this is The Taste of Things. So keep an eye out for it. I'm adding it to my list. But on my end, if I'm not, I've primed myself because I'm uncomfortable thinking about your future, to think about the future of me trying to get through this review of the movie Carrie without you killing me.
I like I said, I'm just so nervous that I'm going to try to make jokes about how you and the movie have the same name.
Yeah.
And they're all going to just flatline and I'm going to look like a buffoon. I feel like this is just a very fraught moment for both of us.
I think it is. And it's, you know what? It's just you and me. No one's here. No one's listening. So just don't worry. No one's going to be upset if you flub one here and there. But yeah, just take it as you will. I think the best thing I could do is to tell you a little bit about what it's about. Is probably the route that I should take. Again, this is thanks to Patreon supporter Granger D. Pohl. This is 1976's Carrie. And
but you were born in 84, correct?
83.
83.
Just a
so
few
it's
years.
It's not 1976's Carrie.
It is the new and improved version.
It is okay.
That was terrible. That was terrible.
I told you, I'm overthinking
you're
it.
You're overthinking.
Terrified.
You're nervous. I can tell that you're actually really nervous. Like this could be the best moment or the worst moment of your life in the next 3 minutes.
Hopefully, Rob takes pity on me and cuts out everything that we've talked about so far.
You know he won't. Okay, so what I'm going to tell you, for a hot minute, I was on the fence if I had seen this movie before. I was like, have I seen Carrie?
How would you not know if you'd seen a movie that has your name?
I just assumed at some point when I was younger that I must have seen it and just forgotten.
Know what's super fucking ironic? I just realized the second.
What?
Piper Laurie, who plays Carrie's mom.
Yes.
Is in a movie called Carrie. I'm pretty sure Piper Laurie is also in a movie called Tim.
Are you serious?
I think there's definitely a movie called Tim about a middle-aged woman who has an affair with like an underage yard worker boy. And I think that movie is called Tim. And I know that movie's called Tim. I think that movie stars Piper Laurie as the woman.
It's Kismet. That's
wild. We need to find if there's a movie called Rob starring Piper Laurie. I don't think there is.
There isn't, which is why he's not here today. But I'm going to tell you about the movie Carrie. To him here for a moment while you can fact check yourself on that. So I thought, like I said, that I had seen it, and then I will tell you the opening scene of this movie happens, and I realized then that there is a 100% chance that young Carrie would have remembered if I had seen this movie.
If you had Carrie's experience, Carrie, you would have carried it with you.
I would have just died. I mean, this is a worst case scenario. Okay, so now with that all said, I had not seen this movie. I probably had only seen like the clip where she gets all of the blood on her. That's all I had ever seen. So I hadn't seen any of this. I'm going in cold. So let me tell you what it's about. Oh boy. All right. So there's this girl. Her name is Carrie. Her last name is White. And I think she's a little bit sheltered. We'll say that. She's a little bit sheltered.
She has been raised away from the ways of the world.
Or raised from the world. So she's got this mom. Her mom, like you said, well, you didn't say this, but her mom's played by Piper Laurie. She's a weirdo. She's like a really big weirdo. She's like a religious fanatic weirdo who thinks that like if you look at a boy, you're going to have a baby, and if somebody touches you, you're gonna like have two babies. Like she's just a little bit all over the place. So then
so movie Carrie's like sexual teaching as a child was almost as bad as your actual Carrie's.
Well, wait, what did she tell her? That like if you
I'm just saying, remember when you were talking about your sex ed?
Oh yeah.
On the and how you like failed.
I failed it.
College sex ed because you didn't know what the penis was.
I didn't say that. I said, gosh, get it right. I only thought there were 2 spots instead of 3. That was what the thing was.
Okay.
There's 2, but there's 3. There's 3 spots.
I don't know what you're talking
For
about,
a
and
female,
I hesitate to push
for
on
a
it.
female, there's 3 spots instead of 2 is what the confusion was in college.
Okay.
So easy mistake to make. So mom is like not taught her anything. She wants her to be away from boys. She thinks they're terrible. I think maybe Carrie was born out of wedlock. And so that's why she's even more like hates men. And she's like, bah, men, gross. So then here's, again, opening scene of this movie, literal worst nightmare. So it starts off unprepared shower scene where they're in the gym at school and they're all just naked. And I did not anticipate seeing Sissy Spacek completely nude. I just was not mentally prepared for that in any way. But she's a good nude lady, if I'm going to be honest with you. Is there a consensus on that?
I don't know that there is a consensus on that, no.
Oh, really? Oh, I thought this was like going to be the buzziest thing about it is that Sissy Spacek's
I
kind of
think people
banging.
do not talk about the nudity in Carrie as its most memorable. I don't even know if it's the most memorable part of this scene, to be frank.
Well, for me, it was. For me, I was just like, jeebers. Like, wow, this is the 70s. I just didn't think there would be naked people in this movie.
Famously, a decade averse to nudity in cinema, the 1970s.
Right. It was so long ago. Maybe my mom would have never watched this. I mean, she probably did. But if my mom had known that I had watched this, I'm sure it would have been on my list of movies that I should probably not have been allowed to watch when I was a kid.
I'm surprised that your parents didn't watch it with you to celebrate the fact that there was a movie that you were named after.
Well,
I assume you were named after this film, yes?
Yes.
Okay.
Of course, it is my mom and dad's favorite. Gosh, now I got to go back to the shower scene. You're right. There is another part of that. So
There sure is.
So the thing is, it's kind of, I don't even know how to describe it. It's a little bit erotic. She's sort of like in the shower.
I can describe it if you need me to describe it.
Well, I don't know. So here's the thing. I don't know why she's doing this, but she's sort of like massaging herself with the bar of soap. But she's like in public. So I think she's forgotten that she's in a public bathroom because she's really into this shower. And it's like the water's everywhere and the soap's everywhere and you're just seeing everything. And she's sort of like massaging herself. And then something terrible happens, which at first I thought maybe she just like nicked herself somehow, but she didn't. She does begin in the shower at school to bleed. And
she is ushered into the flower of her womanhood.
At school, not ideal.
In the locker room showers.
In the locker room showers. Probably, if you had to give a list to me of the top worst things that could ever happen to you, it would be right above death. I would put.
I was going to say, how is this not in the top 2?
This is top 2. This comes as a worst case, like worse than death.
This is like the boys who get boners in the locker room shower at school. This is like an order of magnitude worse than that.
Oh, I don't know about that. If I was a boy and I got a boner in the shower, that would not be ideal.
I mean, depending on which pornographic channel you're watching, sometimes that's how it becomes very exciting. So
I know, but okay. Well, I think that's not ideal either. Again, nobody wants to be like
nobody. That's what I'm saying. That's bad. When
it's
happens,
bad. Oh,
it's
okay. I thought you were like, well,
I'm saying this
people.
is still so much worse than that.
Oh, this is still so. We'll say they're both terrible, but for me, this would have been a worst case scenario. I would say. We were told when I was in 5th grade that you were going to have group showers when I went to 6th grade.
Mm-hmm.
And I can tell you, I laid awake every single night for at least 9 months anticipating how I would get out of it. Where would I hide? Like I had a whole plan worked up that I was going to splash myself with water, hide in like the stall of the bathroom and stand on the thing and then get dressed in there, but like splash some water on myself so that it looked as though I had, because we had all been told that you were going to have to take naked showers when you got to 6th grade. And there's just no way. So layer that on and then, getting your first period in front of everybody, again, just take me in front of a bus.
And
Yes.
because your mother is a religious wacko, you don't know that girls get periods.
Oh, I forget.
So you actually think you're bleeding to death
yes.
for no reason.
This also happened to me. No. Yeah, but if you weren't paying attention in health class too, you could also be a little bit overwhelmed and confused about it as well. So then to top it all off, you think, oh, this is bad. How could it get worse? Then all of a sudden, all the girls that are in there that are just running around without any of their clothes on start randomly throwing all of these pads and tampons at her and like waving them in front of her.
It's not exactly random, no, is it?
Well, why would everybody be like, oh, grab your pads, throw them at this lady? Like the likelihood that somebody would do that in real life is very low.
I think it's one of those things where once the first person throws a tampon, everyone just gets into it.
Everyone throws a tampon. Part of me thought it was a figment
You
of her
don't want to be the
imagination.
only one who didn't throw a tampon. Is what I'm saying.
This is true.
That's like going to Woodstock but leaving before Hendrix plays because you want to get a good like parking space.
So you're justifying. I understand the crowd mentality of throwing all of these things at her. It doesn't end well. The teacher comes in. She is mad. Apparently, teachers at this point are also allowed to just backhand people. This lovely gym teacher.
This is the era when, for no apparent reason other than psychological torture, you tell children a year in advance, by the way, you have to shower naked.
You have to shower.
There's no reason for this. There's no pedagogical yield to making children shower naked together.
No.
It is purely psychological warfare.
And when I did, I should mention, by the time I got to 6th grade, it had shaved off like several years of anxiety, like several years off of my life from all of the anxiety. Mm-hmm. We didn't have to. You no longer had to. I wasted years of worry about nude showering, and I literally just missed it by a year. The year before me, it was nude everywhere. I know. And I saw that as a sign. I was just like, you know what? This is a spiritual moment for me. Somebody's watching out for me.
And to this day, no other human being has ever seen you nude.
Honestly, I don't know the last person that has. At least
I would like to hazard a guess that I could probably figure that out, but maybe I'm wrong.
Actually, yes, the cleaning lady that time she walked in.
I was going to say, maybe you and your husband have maybe you set up the sheet with a hole cut in it. I don't know what you do.
Got a sheet with a hole cut in it.
What the Mormons do. They have sex through a sheet.
They do not do this.
I'm pretty sure they literally do.
Wait, why?
Because they're Mormons.
Yeah, but what is the sheet doing? So you don't look at
it prevents you from seeing your partner's dirty, naked body.
Yeah, but you're seeing it through the hole then.
Well, no, you put the man penetrates the hole.
Yeah, so then
so you're seeing that part of it.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. That's like not like a flattering part. It's not like the best part. So you're just saying you just like peep through. I can't even imagine this.
No, I'm saying nobody looks through the hole.
No, I know. I'm not saying it looks though. I'm saying the peep peeps
male
through.
member.
Yeah, the male member peeps through a hole.
Yes.
I think this is all a lie, and that I'm going to go start telling people that Mormons have sex through peepholes on a sheet, and that it's going to not be factual, and that I'm going to embarrass myself.
Keep summarizing, Carrie. I'm going to look up a fucking site for this.
I would not. You're going to get a virus or something like that. But anyway, back to Carrie. So this doesn't go well. This was a very traumatizing situation, as you might assume. She's already an outcast at school. She has trouble making friends, even though she's perfectly nice. She's a perfectly nice gal. She's like super clean. She has really nice hair. Like there's no like, I don't even know why anyone's being mean to her. She's just lovely. And then the problem is, because people are not so nice to her, though, if she does get mad, but totally rightfully so, if she does that, then she murders people a little bit. So there's like there's some pros and cons to Carrie. But at the end of the day,
I've only heard pros.
I've only heard pros as well. I am in the same boat here. So as the story plays on, I won't tell you what happens, but there is a situation.
Even though you all know what happens in the final scene of Carrie, because it is the most famous thing.
Well, that part happens, but there's another part after that. But
that's true. The penultimate scene of Carrie.
The penultimate scene. So, gosh darn it, if she doesn't start to feel like maybe she is being liked, there's a couple people who have started to be nice to her at school. One of them is a very cute boy with blonde curly hair who's adorbs. And then his girlfriend, who is also trying to be kind. And so she says, like, why don't you take Carrie to the prom? Of course, she thinks it's a joke at first because she's totally socially aware. And then she finally gives in and says yes. The mom is so mad.
I might be misremembering Carrie dramatically. I haven't
Yeah.
seen it in some years. Isn't the friend encouraging her boyfriend to ask Carrie out like one of the conspirators trying to humiliate Carrie?
No, she's
Oh,
not.
okay. Okay.
Which would have made me mad. Like, that would have been no good. But the gym teacher, who's kind of protective of Carrie, who smacks people all over the place, was like, this better not be a prank. It better not be a joke. Why are you doing this? And she said, oh, I just like feel bad for how she's been treated. So I want her to have a good experience, basically. So I can get behind this gal. I'm like, yeah, that's pretty nice. And the blonde curly hair dude, I thought he was going to be a dud. It actually turns out he's pretty great too. He seems fine. He's like on board with helping his girlfriend out. He actually, I think, starts to like Carrie, as if like thinks that she's great and nice and sees her pros rather than her cons. He's not like upset about her murderous ways in any way that we know. And so essentially you're kind of like, hey, smooth sailing is how I'm feeling. Smooth sailing. Like, there, at least she's in with good company. And then she does go to prom. Of course they rig it. She
has a bloody good time.
She has a bloody good time. She's looking lovely in her handmade dress. Even that is like lovely, and it just hangs so nicely on her. Very flattering. And then everyone's having a good time. We're all having a good time, but two big duds come out and have to ruin it for everybody. And they have her win the prom, only to dump blood all over her from a pig at the end. And
they do.
She's pissed. Carrie's
she's very
pissed.
sad.
She's very sad, and she's very pissed. And you know what? She burns the place down.
And she has to deal with the consequences of being pissed for the rest of her life.
She does. I won't say how it ends, but we've all seen the scene where that happens. She just takes matters into her own telekinetic hands. And you know what? This is something I'm not happy about with myself. But I'm all supportive of this. Like, I know this doesn't make me a very good
Carrie's
person.
got to stick together, right?
Right. We get such a bad rap. We've gotten a bad rap for years since this movie came out. I think everyone stopped naming their kid Carrie after this movie came out.
Everyone except for your thoughtless animal parents.
She probably didn't see it. My mom would never watch this movie. There she went, just right around the same time, thinking my great grandma had a nice name. And then here we are. But yeah, I don't know. I ended up feeling like that this movie was good. And I think that
is the consensus of opinion.
Oh, is it? Oh, good.
Oh, very much so. This is a classic.
I think I put this into my category of, if I had seen this as a kid that was like 12, 13, 14, somewhere in there, this would have been my guilty pleasure watch, like right up there with Malice or Poison Ivy, because it's a little bit sexy. It's a little bit like, I would never have seen this with my parents, and I would have felt like I was getting away with something that I wasn't supposed to be watching if I watched this, for sure. And then I would have watched it over and over and over again as a kid.
I feel like that's such an interesting window, because like, you're not wrong that it's in the movie, but like the idea of Carrie being like, I'm gonna watch this sexy erotic movie called Carrie. It's just like, that is not the way with which I interface with Carrie whatsoever.
It's like all that I remember. Yeah, I'm sure a lot of the other movies that I thought was sexy too probably weren't either. Again, for
That's fair.
Like what did we classify my first sexual awakening movie was Casper.
I can't recall now.
I think it was Casper.
It might have been
when
Casper.
Devin Sauer just peeped at Christina Ricci, and I was like, oh my gosh, like whoo, like really hot under the collar. So for me, this one was a little bit on the sexy side, but I don't know. I really liked it. I liked the practical effects. I liked like the destruction, like how that all played out. I'm so curious to read about how they actually did all of that, because they've got hoses running around, like hitting people and killing people with hoses and stuff like that.
Well, this is an old enough movie. They didn't really have safeguards in place, so they probably just did light their cast on fire and kill them.
That's right. I did check all of the IMDb's to see how many people were still around, and there weren't many.
I mean,
so.
one of the people in this movie is John Travolta, so like obviously they did not actually kill off the entire cast.
That's
They
true.
let him live,
Yeah, he was really terrible in this, just like as you would expect. He was
just
really
like he
good.
is in almost everything that he is in.
I know, he's good. And Piper Laurie actually just passed away at 91 in October. So
Yeah.
she made it past the fire. But nevertheless, Granger, really, really enjoyed this movie. I do think I would have enjoyed it even more, like if I had seen it 20 years ago. I think I would have even liked it more. But that doesn't mean that I didn't like it
When you
now.
were an innocent waif of 19.
Where I was just trying to figure everything out, and then I could watch Carrie and have her figure out as well. So I thought it was really good. I really, really, really liked it. So
I am well overdue for a rewatch. I didn't actually care for this movie when I saw it very much. Brian De Palma
yeah.
is a director that I run mostly cold rather than hot with, and this is like one of his big deal films. So I need to give it another shot at some point. I'm aware that that's a shortcoming of mine.
I think he ended up also like marrying or being in a relationship with somebody from the movie. I don't know if it was Piper Laurie.
No, it's Nancy Allen
Nancy
who
Allen.
plays the like meanest of the Mean Girls.
Oh, that's right. That's right. And I also read about her that she had in the original take of the movie or original filming of the movie that there was so much more footage than was actually ever pieced together in editing, and that she didn't actually realize how bad or that she was going to be the bad guy, so to speak,
Yeah.
until the actual movie came out. Like, I think they
Interesting.
yeah.
Okay.
Like she was like, oh, I didn't realize I was going to be seen so bad. I just thought I was this one tiny piece of it. And it really centralizes her, Nancy, as the like real villain, her and John
Sure.
Travolta. And she's like, oh, I didn't think I was that bad
Aw.
until it came out. So, yeah, there's a bunch of fun factoids about it around Sissy Spacek. Also, all the stuff that she did to get into the role for it, like she wouldn't speak with anybody, sat in her what do you vestibule? I don't know. What do you sit in when you're an actor? Your trailer.
trailer.
A trailer. Not a vestibule. She sat in her trailer and just wouldn't interact with anybody because she didn't want to have any feelings about anybody. She wanted to just stay in the character. And that after they ran the scene, the infamous scene where she gets dumped blood on her, that she ended up wearing that same outfit and not changing for a few days and just stayed in the same blood. So every time it would drop on her, it would just sort of like add to her costume, like
All right.
the overall. And that scene itself took like 95 takes or something like that to
That's
get
a lot of pig's blood.
a lot of pig's blood.
I'm sure it wasn't actual pig's blood.
I don't know, but probably not. Probably not. PETA wouldn't like that. And
Well, also, blood is notoriously difficult to work with on a film set because it starts oxidizing so fast.
oh, well, that's fair too. Although the pig scene with John Travolta, it's a little gross, but nevertheless, I really, really like it. So if I haven't spoiled this and you haven't seen it, I think people should check
Then
this
get on
movie out.
that.
Then get
Jesus
on that
Christ,
and
it's
check it out.
Carrie.
I've sold it on there with the nudity. So yeah, those are
I
my-
will say, on the subject of things that are sexy,
Yes.
Carrie, I did a little bit of digging while you were chatting. It appears that the whole sex thing, although widespread as a rumor, it does appear to be a myth.
The whole
That
sex thing.
The Mormons having sex through holes in
Oh.
sheets.
Oh gosh.
So I didn't invent it. I didn't just bullshit that, but it does not appear that it's true. It is true that they have special underwear that they must wear when they're having sex.
What
So they are
kind?
mostly clothed.
Like, what kind do you get?
They're basically long johns.
Okay.
It's like full body underwear that you unclasp in the genital region.
But you already have that. You already have that little peephole there, don't you?
But you do. But the idea is that you leave it on whilst having sex.
I see. I see.
You do not
I
have
see.
naked sex with your partner. You have underpants sex with your partner.
Okay.
And also, when you search for Mormons and sex practices, you land at something called soaking, which is, have you heard of this thing?
Let's be honest with ourselves. Do you think I've heard of this thing?
Well, I don't know. You
No.
have children. Maybe this is the
Soaking.
rage. I'm told it's viral on TikTok. But apparently, as a way of obeying the letter of the law, but not the spirit, or maybe the other way around. I don't know. Remember like back in the 90s, the idea was that kids are having oral sex because they're not quote unquote really having sex if it's oral sex.
No, I don't remember that.
Well, that was the thing. This appears to be the next version of that, where the boy places his penis into the woman and just lies there. And because there's no thrusting and no friction, they're not quote unquote having sex. He's just letting his penis soak in her
hate
vaginal
everything
fluids.
that you're saying. I hate
And then they stop.
I hate everything about this fact that you're
According to
sharing.
Wikipedia, it is also known as marinating or floating.
This is the worst day of my life.
It is the worst day of my life as well.
This
And I've had some bad days, and this tops all of them.
this moment is something
Just
I
imagine.
never
I mean,
needed to
soaking
know.
is bad enough. Imagine like saying, "Hey, baby, you want to marinate?" That
no,
just sounds.
no one says
I would
this.
hope that person would be arrested on the spot.
No one has ever
Cops
said
would just
this.
appear out of thin air and like beat that person.
Just take them away. Just take them away. This has never happened in real life. So if you're listening, if you possibly can have
Apparently, the
listened
Church
through
of
this.
Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints officially calls this an urban legend, but they wouldn't they?
I don't know. I have never been one to marinate or soak myself.
I mean, see if you can
So-
talk Rob into it. It might spice up your sex
I
life.
will never do that. I will never do that. And I'm never going to Google these things that you're Googling because you're going to start to get
There
some
is
weird
a
ads.
drawing on the Wikipedia page.
I
of the
don't
practice.
want a drawing of this. I know I'm getting it in a text message later, but that is horrifying. And I'm taking my children out of school and homeschooling them indefinitely.
Yeah, but this is a Mormon thing. They live in Wisconsin.
Well,
There's
this
no
is
Mormons in
only
Wisconsin.
Mormons.
Jesus.
This is only Mormons that soak.
That would be the indication I'm
Okay.
receiving.
Okay. Well, now I don't feel so bad. I thought this was like things that people are doing in high school now or soaking or something.
No,
so,
they're just having proper old-fashioned sex in high school.
So-
You can ask your daughter about
Don't
it in a couple
scare
years. I'm
me.
sure she'll tell you all
Don't
about it.
scare me. Don't scare me. I don't want to even think about these things. But I will say Carrie did give me a bit of an anxiety. Anytime I watch high school movies now, I start to get a
Carrie
little
always
bit
does the
stressed.
same exact thing to me.
You had to get a couple more.
I wanted one. I wanted to have at least one.
I know. I think you did pretty well. You
The,
did
the
pretty
one I was workshopping in my brain was I've never really cared for Carrie very much. I think that Carrie is kind of overrated and always makes me really disappointed when I'm done. But enough about, see, I fucked it up.
Yeah.
Because that was going to be, but let's talk about the movie.
Yeah, but then you were like, "Oh,
That's
the
like, well, that's
rule-
mean.
That's mean."
And for some reason, I decided
because
not
it feels
to be
too
mean.
true. Because you're like, it's one of those things like you're not supposed to say things that are true. You're only supposed to say things that are actual lies. So
Exactly.
it would be too
Oh.
hurtful. But nevertheless, I'm glad I got to share that one with you because I didn't know who else I could talk to about. So I'm yeah, those are my movies for the week. For the docket of next week, do you have a million movies that you plan to watch?
I have a dissertation chapter that I plan to finish, and once that is done, we will see if any movies can be fitted into the remaining time.
All right. Well, I have a few in the hopper, but we'll likely have a top 5 coming up next. But before we close, we want to thank you for joining us and give an extra special shout out to our Patreon supporters, Nathan Morrow for joining the Emmy Award level and Mike D'Angelo for upgrading to the Emmy Award level. Thank you guys
You both.
both so much for your support. And in closing, if you're still here after our conversation that we've had
This was
today,
gold. Why would anyone not be here because of this episode? This was vintage us.
my soul left.
I
at least
described
20
soaking on the air.
My soul left 20 minutes ago. It's upstairs, having a panic attack. But nevertheless, you, if this wasn't enough for you, can go out and follow us on Instagram, Facebook, and at alternateending.com for all of our other content. We hope you have a good week, and we'll catch you next time.